Guys, today we'll be talking about something I talk about in movies all the time, but there's actually a lot of artists that are very successful despite critics or album of the year not liking them. So album of the year is not, of course, the end all be all of music success, obviously, because album of the year is mostly, the users of album of the year are mostly music critics, and the newest example of this is Taylor Swift's last couple of albums. The user scores for her last couple of albums, Midnight's and Tortured Poor's Department, are not that good. 63, 48, which is actually Taylor Swift's worst user score of any of her albums ever released. But despite this, her album had the record-breaking 300 million total streams in a day. Yeah, I'm sure all of you will be very happy about that. Compared to Vultures 1, which no one liked, it's also a very divisive album as well. But it seems that a lot of artists, despite the panning by the critics, do pretty well. Of course, Taylor Swift is probably one of the biggest music artists in the world, so she can really drop anything and it'll get hundreds of millions of views. But what about other artists? And we're going over several of them. I think the first obvious example is Imagine Dragons. Imagine Dragons is a very popular band a lot of people love. Their songs are pretty cool and pretty epic, and these are pretty bad critic scores. Some of the albums are like meh, like Origins. I'm sorry, having like two good songs on the album does not say, and having like a bunch of mess songs and then having zero on the album, which is probably one of my least favorite songs made by them. Well, Fingers of Imagine Dragons, a lot of the albums are very poorly reviewed, even the first two, 57 and 56, but despite the critical panning of Imagine Dragons, they have 3 songs with over 2 billion views, which is Believer, Thunder, and Demons. They also have a bunch of other really popular songs, including Enemy, Me, Radioactive, Whatever It Takes, Natural, Bones, and Bad Wire as well. Socks is also a pretty popular song, Birds, Going Further Down. And they did release a new song, which I don't know if they have it on here. It's called like Eyes Closed, and we'll see if that song is successful in the future. It isn't doing as well as the other songs, but again, not every song is gonna be a massive, massive hit, obviously, but it's still doing pretty well despite, the scathing and roving by the critics. Because every single song they released is basically like critically panned immediately, as well. But despite the critical panning of Imagine Dragons and the entire band, well, their songs are doing still pretty well. They're still doing pretty well as a band. Of course, Imagine Dragons, I don't think they'll be able to keep up their success forever as well. But this is, one massive case example of a band being critically panned, and even like the fans who went to go see the song, listen to the song Eyes Closed, they're like, we don't give a crap about what the critics think. We're just gonna listen to Imagine Dragons because we love them. And that's kind of like a wholesome, like they like Imagine Dragons as a, us Imagine Dragons fans, we have to basically be like tarred and feathered by Album of the Year and similar critics because we don't listen to real music like Radiohead. It's just so funny that, that Imagine Dragons, no matter how much the critics try to peg them down, their albums still and sales still continue to do well. Okay, for example, Radioactive is still amongst the one of the fastest, longest reigning songs of all time on there, and even a song as hated as Thunder is still getting decent views, which is actually doing better than another song about a certain dance monkey. Yeah, that's pretty funny as well. But that is it about Imagine Dragons. Number 2. We'll be just putting the entire genre of K-pop as well in this year. Not every K-pop album is hated, but a lot of K-pop is absolutely despised by the album of the year community. For example, this is BTS, the most popular K-pop band ever, and they are not around. I don't think they're around anymore. Oh, they have still made some songs in 2023. The songs are not as badly reviewed, but a lot of K-pop artists get the same exact reviews as well. We can also look up Blackpink as well. Same exact reception as well. And even more recent, band like Baby Monster, which I don't really like Baby Monster all too much. It's not a band I don't really like all too much. Especially the fact that they put, the group is basically all minors, which already unsettles me a lot about this band because this is supposed to be an idol group. But Baby Monster, again, despite the Feather and Towering by Album of the Year, well, look at despite the Feather and Towering of, this band, which I don't really like Baby Monster all too much. I don't listen to them at all. 242 million total views on their debut MV, which most artists can't even get 50 anymore. For example, the official video of Vampire only has 102 million views. Flowers only has 766 million views as well, which I'm actually surprised it has that many views. I know the song is pretty popular, but yeah, songs like the fact that these K-pop bands are doing super well compared to most artists. For example, Antihero has less total views, the music video, than Baby Monster, which is pretty weird as well. I'm just using comparisons of like newer songs because I think it's a better comparison. Which is despite the critical backlash that Baby Monster or Blackpink receive, the MVs get hundreds of millions of views, which means the audience who listens to these music don't give a crap about what Hour of the Year thinks, because Hour of the Year is gonna just bash them until the very end as well. And I think ratings for K-pop bands have gotten worse and worse over time as well. These are considered the best. These are according to critics. These are the best rated K-pop albums. The highest is 72, and that's by Twice. And then Illit, MX, Only One Of. And of all time, the highest is 82%, which is 3 bands and which were released in 2017. Reboot by Wonder Girls. This is a very old album, 2015, and Red Velvet, 2017. Which means, according to these people, according to Hour of the Year, K-pop has never improved since the older eras, but despite this, K-pop albums, besides Taylor Swift, generally tend to become the best-selling albums in the US then as well. 7 of the 10 most sold albums in the USA are K-pop albums, and likely the other 3 are Taylor Swift albums. And that's basically the music industry, because most people don't buy CDs. It's only mostly Taylor Swift fans and K-pop, fans that really buy, albums anymore, because most people stream. But again, I think, with most artists, people just stream stuff. But even with physical media, K-pop fans and K-pop stans are going to go out and buy the albums. And yeah, basically it's just K-pop and Taylor Swift of the top 10 albums of that year, which is pretty funny as well, despite the critical panning of K-pop. It's 7 of the 10 most sold albums in the US as well. Which is fine, they don't play K-pop ever at any restaurants. I think they should reconsider that. I know they're starting to. They play, where I went to, they played 3D. That was a K-pop song, but again, I think they're gonna finally catch up to this and stop playing K-pop at most places because they can't ignore the fact that, K-pop has 7 of the 10 most selling albums of the year. Or the fact that the MVs get hundreds of millions of views despite the critical panning, yeah. Which means we might be forced to listen to Batter Up at everywhere we go, which means people will get sick of that song very quickly. And also, I think the reason why K-pop songs don't do very well outside of BTS and Blackpink is because most people, they don't play them at like restaurants. I know that was popular on TikTok and social media, but the average person does not really hear many K-pop songs at a restaurant. Unless they go to like a Korean or an Asian restaurant, or to go to the store, they're gonna be hearing songs that are from the US. If you're from the US, of course, if you're in Asia, it's very different. They're gonna be playing Asian music, but it's still I think it's still because of the cultural barriers. Yes, at this current moment, like people like are gonna mostly boomers still select the music. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised in the next 10 years you start seeing more Spanish music playing in the background of restaurants and K-pop albums as well. Because of course, they continue to do well as well. Number 3. You'll be shocked by this, but the average user score for L&M albums are very low. For example, Kamikaze has a 46, Revival 22, Recovery 55, Relapse 65, Encore 46, and his first couple albums are very well received. But ever since Encore, his albums have been pretty poorly received, which is pretty weird because a lot of people still love Eminem to this day. He is considered the GOAT of rappers, which is a mostly black-dominated industry as well. And most rappers typically fall off. We aren't gonna that's mostly true. Okay, look at DaBaby. We looked at DaBaby in one of the videos and how his songs don't do well anymore because rappers have a very easy time falling off. Okay, it is just how it is. Okay, but despite all of the years saying that most of like Eminem's albums are mediocre, it seems that most of his fans and most of the people do like his music. He hasn't really made an album since 2020. Yeah, but a lot of his songs are very well received despite this as well. And we can also talk about Drake as well. I know Drake has fallen off a lot, but Drake's music, I think, is another example of this. When his songs became really popular in 2016 to 2018, I don't think Drake is as popular as he used to be anymore. But I think his 2016 and 2018 albums are some of the most popular albums released in the 2010s. Okay, I don't really like Drake's music all too much. I think his music is meh. It's not really interesting. Okay, I really hate the one where he talks about the bed. Okay, but despite this, Drake's albums have a lot of pull and weight. Even like For All the Dogs didn't do as well as I think people were expecting, because but even then, a lot of these songs are still pulling in a lot of views as well. Yeah, but it seems that with Album of the Year, again, Drake is again one of the, like Taylor Swift, he's one of the most popular artists in the world. So of course it's not really a good comparison. But his songs have kind of fallen off a lot. But even then, oh, his songs are still pretty popular amongst his fan base. Like there were a lot of his songs that he has around 111 songs, 12 songs that have over 100,000, have hundreds of thousands of views per day, which not many artists can do. He's still, at least as of now, the most viewed artist on Spotify with 97 million streams as well. And despite this, album of the year, again, Eminem and Drake and Taylor Swift are amongst the biggest artists in the world. But look at Taylor Swift's new music. Well, despite what album of the year gave her new album, well, her songs are still doing very well. Which really shows when someone is really popular, they're not gonna like your music. Number 4, or I lost count. Yeah, I most of this video is just me talking and blabbering as well. I think the next artist is Ed Sheeran. So Ed Sheeran is an artist that Album of the Year hates as well. Basically, the reason why they hate Ed Sheeran is because his songs are very slow, what they consider them boring music. But for a long time, at least from 2014 to 2021, Ed Sheeran's albums were very successful. Okay, and some of his songs are still very successful. Like he has around 27 songs that have over 100,000 views. Honestly, I think he has fallen off a lot. Like a lot of his fans have moved on to other music. They got bored of his music, which is again happens all the time. People get bored of music and stop listening to artists. I used to listen to the band Green Day, but I don't anymore. But that's an example right there. But despite the critical panning of Ed Sheeran's music, a lot of he still has around 11 songs with over a billion streams, which is, wild to me and a lot of people as well. I think the next one is Justin Bieber. Of course, we can't go without talking about critic-proof artists without talking about Justin Bieber, the most hated artist online. I don't like Justin Bieber as much as the next guy, but you gotta admit, his songs are very successful. Okay, his songs are very, very successful. Okay, Justin Bieber is still amongst one of the most listened to artists, despite not being able to sing anymore and make new music. Because the difference between Ed Sheeran, Taylor Swift, Drake, and a lot of these other artists that they can still make music. Justin Bieber cannot make new music. He has some face condition, which, basically ended his career. Okay, which is very sad, in my opinion. I know there are people who hate Justin Bieber, like, yay, Justin Bieber's gone finally. But it is pretty sad that he had to cut his career short because of this facial condition as well. But as much as I hate Justin Bieber, I do feel sorry that happened to him. It is something that no one should ever want to have, obviously. But despite this, Justin Bieber he also has one of the most popular Christmas songs, but he also still has one of the most popular songs in general, which is Stay, which is sung by someone else, but Justin Bieber is still in the song as well. But yeah, Justin Bieber has a lot of very popular songs. He has 15 songs with 1 million plus views. It's funny, Baby has 600,000 views per day. Baby's gonna eventually hit 1 billion streams, which means, yes, everyone's favorite song will have over 1 billion views. I hope you guys are happy with this. I think people just listen to it because of the infamousy of Baby as well. And I think with Baby, the song has gained a cult following as well, as a lot of people are starting to say, oh yeah, the song doesn't suck. And I think with that song, it is starting to gain a sort of a cult following, because almost everyone hates the song. But despite this, the song has gained such a sort of a cult following that, despite it being a very old song, it had 600,000 views. Basically. And next artist. And now we have Nickelback, everyone's favorite band in the world. Yeah, Nickelback is, despite the bashing by the critics, Nickelback has always received basically ever since, because some late night host said Nickelback was horrible and poisoning the youths. Basically, Nickelback has been hated ever since then. But despite this, Nickelback is a very successful band, especially this album. Of course, Nickelback isn't as popular as it used to be because they delved into a pretty unpopular genre, which is heavy metal. Because most people don't listen to that, obviously. But the original couple of albums were very successful. They were like hard rock, post grunge music as well, and all of their albums were very successful and very popular, especially amongst the era of music that it was. Because there was a lot of hard rock music that was very popular. You had Green Day, MCR, Fall Out Boy, and they were basically dragged into the emo category, and they were very popular amongst a certain subset of the population. Same thing with Nickelback. Like, you still hear Nickelback played at places. Okay, at least the older albums. The newer albums are not really popular because they lean more towards the heavy metal side of music, which is again a genre that is not very popular amongst most people, but the fans seem to be enjoying the albums because they continue to making albums as well. Well, here's a strange one. One of the most successful bands in the world is not really well received as you think. Queen. So, Queen, if you have never heard of Queen before, you must be living under a rock. Well, this is not really the audience score, it's really the critic score. Okay, the critics don't really like Queen all too much. The audiences still love the music, obviously, but a lot of the albums, like if you look at the rankings of the year, for a band as big as Queen, I know Queen now is really well received, but a lot of the albums, of course, some of the albums do stink, like Hot Space. Like, I don't think anyone's going to be defending Hot Space anytime soon, but Queen has some of the most iconic and most memorable songs of all time. It is kind of weird that the critics didn't like Queen all too much when it came out. And you can say the same thing about Michael Jackson as well, despite the critics panning Michael Jackson music. I think most of these critics realized that they were stupid, and at least his most popular albums are now considered some of the best albums of all time. I think they came around and realized Michael Jackson does not suck, like 90% of people realized. And Michael Jackson's life was a tragedy as well. Yeah. But yeah, that is it about Michael Jackson. To this day, he is still one of the most recognized artists and one of the most popular artists. When you look at the critic score, 66 score, 74 reviews, and of course, most people love Michael Jackson, which isn't surprising because he is one of the most famous artists of all time as well. Which is pretty funny that Michael Jackson, they actually put him as like artists that critics hated but now love. And the same thing could be applied with Queen as well. Both artists were hated by the critics when they initially came out, but the fans adored both artists, and now they're still amongst, to this day, some of the most popular artists ever for the Grace as well. I think you can also say the same thing about Taylor Swift. At least the critics, like the actual tabloid critics, love them. But according to the people who hate Taylor Swift, they're just paid to say that. According to Album of the Year, Taylor Swift's new album is still garbage. Despite this, her album still sold for millions of copies. Will probably sell millions of copies, and of course, it got 300 million views in one day, which is wild, as well. But yeah, I basically made this video because of how successful Taylor Swift's new album was, despite the critical panning of it, despite the critical panning by Album of the Year community, rate your music, and all these music sites that want to judge people's taste in music. Even though most people don't, the bands they love, like Radiohead, no one listens to. So as well. So, and even like there are movies, music artists, but there are a lot of very successful bands and artists that were hated by the critics. And now let's go over us artists that were hated by the critics at the time. Okay, you know, yeah, but some of the most successful bands in history, some of the most successful and loved bands ever, and this is as of 2007. If you even go back in the day when there was no internet, basically, because Nickelback, of course, was becoming pretty popular. It was before Drake, Taylor Swift, and all these artists came around when the critics passed all of them. But despite that, as well, but it's not just Nickelback as well. For example, well, Led Zeppelin, The Doors, and Billy Joel are all classic bands that were ignored by critics as well. You know, you know, as well. Okay, but it's all free. I don't think Nickelback is gonna be received very well. It's good, but I think the best modern example of this is Justin Bieber, because even after he can't make music anymore because of his condition he got, he still has lots of monthly listeners, 60 to 70 million, which is a lot, which most artists can't really achieve as well. Okay, which is something that's wild. Yeah. Okay, Justin Bieber has 76 million monthly listeners, which is despite the mass critical panning by the internet and the mass critical panning by the critics, obviously. Because the critics, of course, are not going to like Justin Bieber just as much as most of the internet doesn't. Okay? Which means, in 40 years, people could be seeing Baby as a classic song. Just like how a lot of people from the 50s, no, not 50s, from the 80s and 70s view stuff like Bohemian Rhapsody or Don't Stop Believin' because of nostalgia and because of passing it down from generation to generation. Same thing with Eminem, which is pretty funny. Eminem is one of the most popular artists in the world. He hasn't released a new song since 2020, but still has 67 million monthly listeners. And of course, the band we started this video with, Imagine Dragons. I think Imagine Dragons will probably be received just as well as kind of like some of the 70s and 80s bands that were critically panned at the time, but they'll be seen as classic music from the 2010s and 2020s, especially the 2010s songs as well. I think the newest example of this is Tate McRae. I do not like her music at all. Her music is pretty bad. Okay, but a lot of her songs are getting built. See, her newest song, Greedy, has over 1 billion views, which despite the critical panning of Tate McRae's music, which I don't like her music, I don't like her voice. Her voice is pretty annoying as well, but despite this, her songs, she has 2 songs that have over 1 billion total streams. And Tate McRae is a new artist. She is not an old artist. She is a relatively new artist. Which again, despite the critical panning of her music, it is basically her fans still love her music regardless of what L of the Year or what, no, not Rotten Tomatoes is a movie site. L of the Year and Rate Your Music give. So yeah. Which means, I think this, as a whole, further proves that the critics don't really matter when it comes to music. Okay? Because the kind of like of movies, I don't really think Album of the Year scores really affect album sales. They really don't. Same thing with what the critics think and online critics, because I think music is such a big industry that once an artist is very big and connects with a very large audience, for example, Taylor Swift or Ed Sheeran, I think that no matter what, people are going to be listening to whatever they make. I think with Ed Sheeran, he kind of did fall off. Like, most people just don't care about the new music. But an artist like Taylor Swift, I think she'll be regarded in the same way as a lot of these artists that were panned by critics and panned by sites like Album of the Year. But I know not every Taylor Swift album is panned, but Yeah, despite this, her songs have billions of views. Taylor Swift is the most successful female artist in history. Okay, maybe not most successful artist ever, but most successful female artist almost certainly. Okay, I think we gotta give that crown to Taylor Swift as the most successful female artist ever in history. And who would be the second? Maybe Ariana Grande, at least according to Spotify as well, which is pretty funny because we're gonna put and the same thing with the top tens, okay? Because the top tens are the same attitudes as L of the Year, obviously. You know, they love Japan, Ed Sheeran, Taylor Swift, and Drake. But despite this, they still have massive audiences that still will go see whatever they make. I know Ed Sheeran's last album didn't really do too well. Well, I think it was my brain is oh yeah, Autumn Variations, but again, he released a country album, which why did he make a country album and most people don't listen to country? Yeah, I don't understand this real trend either. The fact that we have to all release these country albums. I think Ed Sheeran's country album should be a case study of why pop artists should not go country. Okay, because no one cared about his country album as well. And I don't think he really advertised it too much either. Yeah. But I think the most successful song on that has doesn't even have 100 million views. Like everybody's like, oh, what is this weird thing? And the people who did clicks like meh, and moved on. But Ed Sheeran, I think he is an artist that people might go back to in the future, to and realize that yeah, I missed the song or nostalgia or something. Being oh, I remember this song or something, and they hear it at like a store or something. I think it'll be the same thing with like a lot of these artists on this list, honestly. And that is it. So despite the critic scores, and yeah, we are brought back full circle. So what do you think about this video? Do you think that, the critics are full of bullshit? Because most people don't give a crap about what music critics think. Okay, I think it's different between like Rotten Tomatoes. Is that music doesn't really, cost much to, for anyone to listen to anymore. Okay, and even some of the most popular bands ever were hated by the critics at the time, like Queen, or one of the most popular singers ever, Michael Jackson, was panned by the critics at the time. And that's about this video here. Goodbye.